Hey guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm Gene Delasala, president of Audioholics. Today I'm going to talk to you about setting up Blu-ray players. You know, we just did a video on setting up AV receivers, but why not do one on Blu-ray as well? I can't tell you how many times I've been to people's homes where they have Blu-ray or a DVD player. They even have the right cable connected to their receiver, but they're still not getting multi-channel surround. So I want to take you through a whole setup of an Oppo BDP105D. Now that's their flagship player, but it doesn't matter if it's a 105 or a 103 or even the older ones like the 93 and 95. The on-screen menus are very similar. The setup is very similar. I'm going to take you through basically a tour on how to set up the HDMI outputs, how to configure the audio, maybe make some adjustments on video, and just basically give you the basics. And I think this would help a lot of people. I want to make sure this also assumes that you have all the correct cabling done. You know, the only way to get HD audio out of a Blu-ray player is through HDMI output. Now some players do analog outputs that will convert it to PCM, or I'm sorry, that will actually decode it and send it to your receiver if you have multi-channel inputs. But let's focus on HDMI because I think most people now are using HDMI. And with that said, let's get to the screen over at the Audioholics Showcase Center and let's roll up our sleeves and let's get this baby configured. Thanks guys. Okay guys, we're back. We got the Oppo BDP105D fired up. And I'm going to take you through the basic setup here to make sure you have it all set right so you get the best picture quality, the best sound quality. You can see we're in the setup menu here. Actually, this is the splash screen, so you have all these different options here. You've got to put a disc in. This is a really cool player because it does networking. It has all your apps here if you want to use YouTube or Netflix. Finally, Oppo has a Netflix interface that works good. You know, you could type in pretty quickly and you could do your stuff. Their last generation ones weren't so great, but they're much better now. Anyway, so I wanted to take you to the setup menu. Most Blu-ray players should have the setup menu, although I found some of the older ones that are virtually non-existent, which blows my mind. So make sure when you get a good Blu-ray player that you're able to do these type of configurations. So we go here, we click on setup. And now it takes us to all of our screens here for playback setup, video setup, audio formatting, network, all that stuff. So, you know, I do a lot of SACD listening, and I set that for multi-channel. Same thing with DVD audio. I mean, if you guys have any of these discs, most of this stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Auto resume is kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes I'll put a disc in after not listening to it for a couple of months, and it'll remember, and it just starts playing and you can't stop it. So I would almost say no. It's good for movies, but not so good for music. I'll let you guys figure that out. Now you got video set up here, and you've got, the Oppo has two different HDMI outputs, and they're not equal. There's one HDMI output that's really tailored for video, and the other one's really tailored more for audio. So make sure you're using the right output for the right signal. I would send the better output directly to your projector if you can, for video, and then the other one could go right into your receiver for the audio. If you're really into the SACD and you want to maintain DSD all the way into your receiver as opposed to converting it to PCM. But just realize that if you use base management in your receiver, you're going to eventually convert that SACD to PCM anyways, and it's not such a dirty thing. It's just the reality of life. So anyways, I have mine set to split. Output resolution, I mean, again, most of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Some of this stuff really depends on what kind of a display you're running. So always check your user manual of your display before you start selecting these things. Because in some cases, if you do it and it doesn't work, well, then you know your TV is not compatible. So I want to focus more on the audio. Over here, we have secondary audio. I would tell you in 95% of cases to keep that off. All that does is that gives you, if a Blu-ray has some secondary audio, if it's like narration or whatever, if you leave this on, in most cases, you're going to lose your high-def audio signal, your multi-channel signal. So your Dolby True HD or your DTS HD, you're going to basically be bypassing that for the secondary audio. And a lot of the older players would leave this on by default, and people couldn't figure out why they weren't getting uncompressed audio through their Blu-ray player into their receivers. So the first thing I do, guys, is make sure that's off. Okay, HDMI audio, I choose that for auto. If you are using coax output or the optical output to an older receiver that doesn't have HDMI, make sure it's set for bitstream. You could do LPCM if you want. If you're doing if you want to have the player actually do the decoding instead of the processor. But again, in most cases, I would leave it at bitstream. SACD output, if you're playing SACDs, leave that on auto. HDCD, I mean, I don't even have any, so I left it off, but you could turn it on, no biggie. Now we got audio processing. This is only on outputs that or models that have multi-channel analog outputs. I don't use mine, so I don't suggest you use them in most cases unless you're using this product as a preamp processor too. And in that case, you set up the base management just like we set it up when we did the receiver video. Very similar, nothing different. Device setup here is just, I set mine for wired connection. Check for your firmware updates. Networking, I set all my IP addresses static. I know it's a bit anal retentive, but I've had issues with routers where I'd be on Xbox and there would be a conflict when they both try to negotiate for an IP address. You avoid all that if you could set all your IP addresses static, and it just makes your world a lot easier. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell you is if you're watching a movie and you're not sure if you're listening to 5.1 or not, like on the Oppo, there's an audio button. And if you hit that audio button, it will actually show you which soundtrack you're decoding. So in some cases, if you're only in a 2.0 soundtrack, you can hit that audio button until you get the DTS HD or Dolby True HD. Keep selecting it and hit it until you get to that. Now, in most cases, the newer Blu-rays are really good. They always default to the DTS HD or the higher resolution soundtrack. But, you know, if you get some of these older ones, like I put on an old Fleetwood Mac DVD a couple of weeks ago, and it defaults to 2-channel PCM. So you got to go in and make sure you set it for 5.1. If you can't find it in the on-screen display or in the menu of the DVD, the cheat is to hit the audio button on your Blu-ray player and select the 5.1 there. So I think that covers it, guys. I would suggest that you just take the time, make sure you make the right connections, make sure you set up the player right, and make sure you're getting a multi-channel signal going between your Blu-ray player and your receiver, because there's a world of difference when you're listening to multi-channel versus 2-channel and trying to use matrix surround sound through your receiver. So take the time, guys, and if you have any questions, please put them below. If you like this video, subscribe to it, and give us some suggestions on if you want to see something else that's set up. You know, maybe we'll do some more videos on subwoofer setup, or you let us know. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and until next time.